To complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. The economic managers of the Duterte administration urges the lawmakers anew to pass the rice tariffication bill. According to Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Ernesto Pernia, the enactment of the bill will bring down the prices of rice, control inflation, and improve the local farmers' productivity and competitiveness. Under the rice tariffication bill, rice can be imported freely, though it will be accompanied by a 35% tariff rate. The economic managers are also studying the proposal to reduce the tax rates on imported agri-products to tame inflation, but some senators are not convinced with the measure.
Sa tingin namin kung ipasa yung rice tariffication at ayusin talaga yung agriculture sector, maganda ang magiging malaki yung pagbaba ng inflation.
But the tariffication rice is a very sensitive issue. Mag-ingat sila dyan because maapektuhan yung ating mga magsasaka.
Meanwhile, the government plans to roll out the National Identification System by the end of the year. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, poor Filipinos and those belonging to vulnerable sectors will be prioritized in the release of the ID for the first 2 years of its implementation. Upon its enforcement, Filipinos can acquire a Philippine ID by presenting a copy of their birth certificate. Newly born babies may also be given an ID upon live birth registration, to be updated upon reaching 5 years, 15, or 18 years of age. PhilID can also be renewed to update the personal information. The PSA, however, clarifies that acquiring a national ID is not mandatory, but it will be difficult to access services and transact with government without it.
Unahin muna natin yung unconditional cash transfer. Importante mabigyan na sila ng UCT kasi sila yung most affected ng ating train. So there are about 2.6 million of them. The CCT beneficiaries, the UCT, the senior citizens, the PWDs, the IPs, the more disadvantaged sector of society.
And in other news, the number of leptospirosis infection in Metro Manila continues to rise this year. Data from the Department of Health show that the leptospirosis cases jumped to 817, with 85 deaths from January 1 to August 2, 2018, which is 300% higher compared to the reported number in the same period last year. With this, DOH reminds the public once again to avoid wading in flood water, dispose their waste properly, and to immediately seek medical help when the symptoms begin to manifest.
As of now, talagang ang ating pong mortality rate doon sa mga nako-confine natin, 10 to 15%. Meaning sa bawat 100 po na ma-confine, talagang 10 hanggang 15 na mamatay dahil sa komplikasyon sa kidney, sa atay, sa baga.
The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA, is now coordinating with their Chinese and Malaysian counterparts to hunt for the syndicate behind the 4 billion pesos worth of shabu intercepted in Manila port. The shabu shipment, weighing almost 500 kilograms and concealed inside magnetic lifters in a container van, arrived last June 28 from Malaysia. It was consigned to Becaba Trading. The authorities are investigating the origin of the illegal drugs as they suspect that Malaysia was only used as a transshipment point.
Backtrack namin lahat yung investigation namin to determine kung ano pa yung mga modus ng mga grupo.
The battle for the minority in the House of Representatives is deemed far from over. Following his controversial retention as House Minority Leader, Quezon District Representative Danilo Suarez is likely to face 2 complaints at the Supreme Court. 2 other blocs contesting the minority leadership are the Liberal Party, Makabayan Alliance led by Marikina Representative Miro Kimbo, and Alvarez Fariñas Group led by ABS Party List Representative Eugene De Vera. Kimbo will name as respondents House Speaker Gloria Arroyo, Majority Leader Rolando Andaya, and Suarez, accusing them of deliberately violating the House rules.
We need to take it to the Supreme Court para may stability din para sa House. Hindi naman magiging katanggap-tanggap at tingin ko talagang isang dagok at nakakahiya para sa ating Kongreso na magkaroon ng ganitong karanasan ng minority leader ay inappoint ng majority.
Meanwhile, Fariñas Group is also preparing their own lawsuit, but aside from Arroyo, Suarez, and Andaya, they also plan to charge Kimbo's group.
We will challenge this in the Supreme Court. So we are just gathering all the documents. Our petition will be very simple. It is certiorari, prohibition, mandamus, co-warranto, lahat-lahat na.
Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara thanks the Supreme Court for its ruling allowing trial courts to issue a precautionary whole departure order to prevent a person suspected of a crime from departing the country. The precautionary HDO is an order in writing issued by a court commanding the Bureau of Immigration to prevent the flight of suspects who are subject of criminal complaints. It shall be issued in cases where the accused is facing a charge punishable by 6 years. Justice Guevara says the decision will help in their predicament, citing the High Court's ruling in April 2018 barring the DOJ from issuing watch list orders, immigration lookout bulletin, and whole departure orders. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court, voting 11-1, released the ruling that allows a prosecutor to apply for the precautionary HDO before any regional court within the territorial jurisdiction where the alleged crime was committed. The rule on the PHDO will take effect within 15 days after its publication.
The precautionary whole departure order may be applied for in the same manner that a search warrant may be issued. That is, before a judge who must determine probable cause upon a personal examination of witnesses under oath or affirmation. But the judge in a precautionary whole departure order application must also determine whether there is a high probability that the subject will depart from the Philippines to evade arrest and prosecution of crime against him or her.
Rain gear should be prepared tomorrow. Tell us why Leslie Longboen from the UNTV Weather Center. Leslie?
Yes, good evening. Karding has slightly intensified while remaining almost stationary over the Philippine Sea. The center of Tropical Storm Karding was earlier located at 1,220 kilometers east of Basco, Batanes, with maximum sustained winds of 65 kilometers per hour and gustiness of up to 80 kilometers per hour. The storm is moving east-northeast at 15 kilometers per hour. According to Pag-asa, Karding is not expected to make landfall in any part of the country. Meanwhile, southwest monsoon is affecting the whole country. Metro Manila, Ilocos Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Bicol Region, Western Visayas, and Zamboanga Peninsula will be under cloudy skies with scattered rains and thunderstorms. Isolated rains or thunderstorms will also be experienced over the rest of Visayas and Mindanao, while Cagayan Valley will experience fair weather. Meanwhile, sea travel is risky in the western seaboards of northern, central, and southern Luzon. According to Pag-asa, Metro Manila's temperature tomorrow will range from 24 to 30 degrees Celsius, 16 to 23 degrees Celsius in Baguio City, 25 to 32 degrees Celsius in Metro Cebu, and 25 to 33 degrees Celsius in Metro Davao. Tomorrow, the sun is expected to rise at 5:41 in the morning. That's the weather forecast. Back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Leslie Longboen from the UNTV Weather Center. And for the news abroad, the government of Indonesia is struggling to reach areas that were heavily affected by the strong earthquake. Kath Dumaraos tells us why.
2 days on, Indonesian villagers living close to the epicenter of a magnitude 6.9 earthquake say on Tuesday they have yet to receive any aid and were in desperate need of food and clean water.
Not yet. Aid was sent to the villages further down. Nothing has reached here yet. The people there took it all. Here, nothing.
In Kayangan, on the resort island of Lombok's northern end, few buildings were left standing, and residents say that as many as 40 people had died in the quake. Some villagers used sledgehammers and ropes to start clearing the rubble of broken homes on Tuesday, but others, traumatized by continued aftershocks, were too afraid to venture far from tents and tarpaulins set up in open spaces. About 75% of the north has been without electricity since Sunday, officials say. and some communities were hard to reach because bridges were damaged and trees, rocks, and sand lay across roads cracked wide open in places by the tremor. There has been little government relief for the area, where the greatest need is for water and food, as underground water sources have been blocked by the quake and shops destroyed or abandoned.
Terutama bahan makanan pokok yang
What we need urgently is food and clean water. And we hope the government will pay attention to the fact we really need help.
bantuan dari kalian semua.
The official death toll from Sunday's powerful quake hit more than 100 as victims continued to be found under collapsed buildings. The number of deaths is still expected to rise, according to Indonesia's Disaster Mitigation Agency. Kat Dumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue.
Meanwhile, an ex-police official admits involvement in the operation to launch armed drones against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, along with a militant group called the Resistance. Here's why from Nomer Peñaranda.
A former Venezuelan municipal police chief and anti-government activist says he helped organize an operation to launch armed drones over a military rally on Saturday that President Nicolas Maduro has called an assassination attempt. In an interview, Salvatore Lucchese, a Venezuelan activist who was previously imprisoned for his role in the past protest, says he orchestrated the attack with the loose association of anti-Maduro militants known generally in Venezuela as the Resistance.
We organized this plot. I want to declare and do so publicly, even though through my social network accounts. I belong to the Venezuelan Resistance. I am not the leader nor the spokesman because we are all mere foot soldiers.
Lucchese described the incident as part of a sustained armed effort against Maduro. He declined to describe his precise role in the operation, in the broader resistance, or identify others involved, citing the need to protect their identity.
This was no trial run. We will be clear on that. We had an objective, and in the moment, we were not able to materialize it 100%. We qualify it as a total success.
Venezuela's information ministry did not reply to requests for comment. Maduro, who was chosen by late leftist President Hugo Chavez as the Socialist Party candidate to succeed him in 2013, often says Venezuela's problems are the result of an economic war by enemies abroad, including the United States. He blames the drone attack on right-wing opposition figures and foreign enablers, specifically citing the government of neighboring Colombia. Colombia's government has denied any involvement. Venezuelan authorities over the weekend arrested 6 people, including one suspect who had been detained for protests in 2014 and another wanted for involvement in a 2017 military base attack. The government says the drone carried plastic explosives detonated remotely. A little-known group called the National Movement of Soldiers in T-shirts over the weekend also claimed responsibility for the drone attack. It too described itself as part of the resistance. Nomer Peñaranda, UNTV News and Rescue.
Meanwhile, California's biggest wildfire on record is expected to burn for the rest of the month, according to fire officials. Here's why from Beverly Saison.
The Mendocino Complex fire has already engulfed 290,692 acres, almost the size of Los Angeles. Barely a third of it is under control, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. Firefighters are tackling 18 major blazes across the state amid strong winds and low humidity. The fire, which comprises 2 blazes in the state's north, was declared the biggest in California's history on Monday. Officials had set a target to extinguish the fire by mid-August, but they now say they will need until early September. The fire is raging through a largely rural area, but it has burned 75 buildings and led to thousands of evacuations. At least 14,000 firefighters are struggling to contain the multiple outbreaks. The crews have been boosted by U.S. Army personnel and more than 1,000 prisoners. The inmates, who are considered low-risk offenders, work on a volunteer basis. Fire crews from Australia and New Zealand have also flown over to share their expertise in battling bushfires. U.S. President Donald Trump earlier said his administration was in contact with officials in California over wildfires burning in the state.
We're going to have some meetings about it because there are reasons and there are things you can do to mitigate what's happening.
Beverly Saison, UNTV News and Rescue, San Diego, California.
An Argentinian male who was born without hands is making a living cutting hair at a popular barber shop in Buenos Aires. He says he never felt limited by his condition. Leslie Longbowen tells us why.
Gabriel Heredia welcomes even the most demanding clients and all their buzzes, fades, lineups, and tints at the popular barber shop where he works in a neighborhood of Buenos Aires. To hear him talk about his craft, the fact that Heredia was born without hands and forearms was just one challenge like any other to overcome.
There are people who when they see me aren't really excited to get their haircut with me. But when they see the finished haircut at the end, they're speechless, really.
Heredia, who hails from a working-class background, followed his brother into the hairstyling trade and has refined his craft to the point of taking part in hairstyling competitions. Crediting family and friends for their support, Heredia says he never felt limited by his condition.
We put our own limits on ourselves and even our own goals that we want to achieve. You always have to try to get ahead and not let yourself get distracted by what others might say.
Leslie Longbowen, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news August 8, 2018. On behalf of Rheena, Villamor-Camara, and Angelo Castro III, I am William Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.